Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. A challenging day in the market for the Bitcoin mining stocks, with both Bitcoin and Ethereum flirting again with all-time highs. The Bitcoin miners seem to be floundering. We're going to be talking about that in today's video, in addition to CoreWeave earnings, the impact that's having on Core Scientific shares today, and of course, Bitdeer production results for the month of July. We've got a lot to talk about. Before we get into it, take a second, hit the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the Bitcoin mining stocks and why you think there's this disconnect between the miners' performance and Bitcoin itself. With that being said, let's get into today's video. All right, guys, away we go. Unfortunately, we had to delay the Ben Gagnon podcast until tomorrow, so we wanted to give you guys a heads up on that one. That's all right, because we've got a lot to talk about in today's podcast. We're going to be kicking it off with Bitcoin, Ethereum. This recent rally, we've seen both of the top cryptos in the world really receiving a ton of attention, a lot of inbound volume in terms of new dollars flowing into these assets. And as a result, we're starting to see both Ethereum and Bitcoin flirting with all-time highs once again.
Yeah, it's been a couple of good days actually for both coins, especially Ethereum. But we'll come on to Bitcoin first. Bitcoin has had a nice rally today. Up to 122,000. It's pulled back a little bit now. It's just above 121,000. But yesterday on the channel, we were in the sort of like 119, 120,000 range. So a really good pickup today. And, Ethereum, which has had a remarkable month. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin for a month, probably only up probably 6-7%. But if you look at Ethereum, it's up significantly higher than that, well over 50% up in the last month. And today, getting closer and closer to that all-time high. Now, we talked about Bitcoin, probably hit about 15, 20 all-time highs since the presidential election results. But Ethereum, the last time that did its all-time high was probably back in 2021 or 2022. It reached about $4,800. And today it was very, very close. It was within $100 of getting to that all-time high. So it reached over 4,700. It's pulled back now, but it's still within easy reach, and another move upwards. We could see that all-time high for Ethereum. Yeah, and interestingly, Standard Chartered came out today and have just revised their year-end target for Ethereum from $4,000, which is their original target, to $7,500. And it also predicts that the coin should reach 25,000 by the end of 2028. So within the next 3 years, we could see that at least like a 5x from where we are today. So an interesting update there. But this is all down to that the fact that we're seeing companies now buying these coins. We didn't see that over a year ago. It was just retail investors who moved the price of Bitcoin and the price of Ethereum and the other 20,000 coins that are out there for people to choose from. But it's been retail investors for the first sort of 14 years of this cycle of crypto. And in the last sort of year, we've now seen obviously the ETFs, and we've seen companies come in there and buy significant amounts of both of these coins. Relentless buying, not just buying a little bit, not just putting 2 or 3%, but literally changing the whole landscape. And these treasury management companies have now seen a process where they can sort of like grow very, very quickly. We've seen companies that were worth very, very small amounts, and even Strategy is a good example of that. Strategy was valued about $1 billion before it started buying any Bitcoin, and now look at the valuation there, well over $100 billion. So you can see from that there, and there's many other examples that have happened since then, equally with some enormous premiums given to some of these companies. So yeah, interesting positions today, but we'll have a little chat about where the mining stocks are.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting to watch all these treasury companies pop up, come into the limelight, and see these huge market cap expansions, while the Bitcoin miners who've been here in the space for years not receiving that same attention. Now, it is going to be interesting in the next bear cycle to see how these treasury strategies hold up. I've got the feeling that we'll start to see a lot of these maybe start to fall off as the dynamics in the crypto market change. But you're exactly right. In terms of the Bitcoin miners, I said in the intro, frustrating or disappointing to see this disconnect. We've talked about this throughout the year. As we're hitting all these 15 new all-time highs in Bitcoin, the miners just don't seem to be in lockstep. There's a disconnect between the miners and the price of Bitcoin itself. Many of them are now trading more closely on the HPC side of the company. Obviously, the CoreWeave, Core Scientific arbitrage trade we'll talk about later, but the miners themselves seem to be floundering today.
Yeah, they do. I mean, if you look at the chart there, the majority are in the green, but we're not talking any significant amount. I mean, Soluna's heading the day just about 3%, and we're still probably dissecting that great deal they had yesterday when they announced this, this deal with Galaxy to host their fleet that's coming away from the Helios site to make way for CoreWeave to move into there in the near future when it's refurbished. So their stock price having another good day. Bit Digital, obviously, the link there is the fact they've got 120,000 Ethereum on the balance sheet, so their stock price is up there. But again, it's Ethereum's had a massive ride over the last few days, but Bit Digital not having the same connect there, and we'll come on to look at the value of the HODL that some of these companies got against their market capitalization, just to show you, what little or no premium they're being given. In terms on the downside, well, we had CoreWeave released their second quarter results yesterday, and although there was a lot of optimism in the results, they were slightly better than the first quarter. I think people weren't expecting how good the first quarter was for CoreWeave, and so the second quarter, although it was better, I think people's expectations were a little bit higher. Wells Fargo, one of the leading analyst firms who follow CoreWeave, raised their share price for CoreWeave. Interestingly, it was $60 prior to earnings. They've now raised that to $105. Well, yesterday, before earnings were released, CoreWeave share price was around about $140. So they're playing a little bit catch up there. But I listened to a little bit of the interview on CNBC today, and the analyst covering the CoreWeave stock said, that $105 is effectively based on the 2027 EBITDA at 60 times EBITDA earnings. So that's some optimism there. We've spoke about multiples before, and we looked at the mining space, and where analysts were only giving 2 to 3 multiples to Bitcoin miners and maybe 15 to 20 to the HPC side. Well, there's an analyst company giving CoreWeave 60 times earnings, and they're in the business of delivering HPC. Now, they do have a hyperscaler, obviously. OpenAI have signed enormous contracts with CoreWeave, and they're due to deliver something like about 30 billion of money coming in this year through revenue, through loans. And they're expected to spend about 20 billion on assets and infrastructure just this year alone. So you can see there's a lot of growth going on. And there's also probably a lot of uncertainty as well. Well, that uncertainty is obviously affecting the Core's scientific share price, because that's down 9% today. So, yesterday you could have, sold your Core shares at about $15, and today they're hovering around the $13.70 mark at the moment. So, let's see how this plays out. The other news to come out from that update is the fact that in 2 days' time, the shareholders of CoreWeave reach the end of their lockup period, and a significant amount of shareholders, not a great liquidity of shares in the market, but there'll be a lot more shares in the market come 2 days' time, and they'll have the ability to start selling those shares. And if you consider what the IPO price was at $40, you might see a lot of share pressure on sales being made during that period.
Yeah, you're quite right, Anthony. Interesting to see that one play out. Now, two other areas where we're seeing some optimism in the market right now. If you look at the Ethereum treasury companies here, so I've started a little watch list on those. You can see 4 of the top publicly traded Ethereum treasury companies, a strong performance for them alongside the data center stocks as well. So a couple of new watch lists, so to speak, for you guys in the audience there.
Yeah, and as you can see on the top of the list there, Wi-Fi It's still below the IPO price of $17, but making some nice ground today, obviously with the Ethereum move up there. So Bit Digital, Wi-Fi, both having the best day in terms of mining and HPC stocks.
Yeah, they certainly are. So once again, a difficult pill to swallow in the Bitcoin mining space today. Seeing all these other related companies or other Bitcoin, Ethereum proxies moving up while the miners continue to find their footing. Now, Bitdeer came out with their July production results today. So we've now seen a number of these results or reports for the miners coming out of July. We can walk through Bitdeer next, but interesting if you look at some of the operational updates. Specifically in relation to the Seal Miner platform, talking about onshoring or starting up their US manufacturing of the Seal Miner itself.
No, absolutely. And they've issued a significant amount of seal miners to sites in July to grow that hash rate to over 22 exahash now. So I think 35% increase in hash rate for the month there. Exceptional performance to get that done so quickly, and they're on track to get to 40 exahash by the end of the year. It helps when you're producing your own mining machines. You don't have to rely on supply chains or anything like that. The only issue they have now is probably delivery of the machines to make sure they reach those parts, because unlike most North American miners, Bitdeer are located all over the world. They've got facilities in Norway, Bhutan, they've got facilities in the US, and so they're quite well stretched out. And so as long as the supply chains to get those machines to where they need to be at the time, I think everything should start to work out all right. Now, in terms of the July position there, I mentioned that they've produced 282 Bitcoin during the month. That's a big increase. That's an average of 9.1 Bitcoin per day, and that's 34% higher than what they were delivering in June, which was just over 6 Bitcoin per day. And obviously, this was due to the fact that the newly energized Seal miner rigs had arrived at the various sites. The company deployed 10.2 exahash of Seal miners for self-mining across the US, Norway, and Bhutan, while shipping a further 5.9 exahash to customers externally. Now, we talk about the Seal miner, that they're already in sort of like very close now, the final stages of mass production of the Seal miner A3, with a commercial launch expected next month in September. And looking ahead, the R&D team are fully focused on delivering the next generation Seal 04 miner. This is designed to achieve a chip level efficiency of approximately about 5 joules a terahash. That effectively is going to be market leading. I mean, the Seal Miner A3 is already going to be market leading, but the Seal Miner A4 just takes it effectively to another level. Infrastructure expansion also advanced significantly during the month of July. The 100 megawatt cooling conversion in Rockdale, Texas is now fully operational, hosting Seal Miner A2 rigs there. An additional energization across Tidal, Norway, which is 126 megawatts, and Jimaling in Bhutan, 235 megawatts, brought the company's total available electrical capacity online at the moment to 1.2 gigawatts of power. The Massillon, Ohio site remains under phased construction, with initial energization expected by October 2025, so not too far away for that one to come online. And therefore, beyond mining itself, Bitdeer is pursuing a high-performance compute and AI opportunities that are available. Advanced discussions are already underway with a development partner for the Clarington, Ohio site, while GPU cloud services powered by NVIDIA SuperPods are near full utilization, reflecting the strong customer demand. These really just illustrate why Bitdeer is actively pursuing this dual strategy, scaling global mining capacity while advancing the energy efficient hardware innovation. And it's in a position now where it's a leading player in evolving the cryptocurrency mining and high performance compute sectors, aligning its operational expansion with technological advancement to meet growing global demand.
Yeah, good update there. And as I say, interesting to see them talk about this U.S. tariff avoidance, with them specifically stating the U.S. manufacturing facility is in active planning and preparation phase. So you're right, Anthony. The big factor now will be the supply chain, the delivery of these machines all over the world as they continue to take market share from some of the other ASIC providers. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that situation. Now, the next piece of the pie here we wanted to talk about today relates to Ethereum, Bitcoin strength that we talked about in the intro, but the percentage of these companies or the Bitcoin miners' market cap that is now made up by their HODL position. So you've updated your table here. We obviously have Bitcoin and Ethereum listed in the case of Bit Digital, but interesting to see this chart evolve or change as Bitcoin, Ethereum start to push up towards those all-time highs.
Yeah, and we've shown this table, with great regularity because it does highlight, how the Bitcoin is perceived from the market for some of these Bitcoin mining companies. You look at the likes of Mara, they've got, over 50,000 Bitcoin, currently valued at just over $6.1 billion. And their market cap, as we speak, is about $5.9 billion. So the HODL to market cap at the moment reflects 104%. Here's a company that owns close to 70% of its sites, has probably over 300,000 mining machines that haven't got that value. Yes, they do have a significant amount of convertible debt on the balance sheet. But when you look at the likes of Strategy, who've gone out there and purchase Bitcoin, and they're getting an MNAV probably close to 2. You'd like to think Mara is probably significantly lower than that. So that's interesting. DMG, on the other hand, don't have significant amounts of debt, and they sold 60 Bitcoin during the month of July. So their hodls come down from July. Today, that represents 97% of the business. Now, they're a company, with, significant amounts of land and buildings and mining machines up in your neck of the woods, Bryce, and doesn't seem to be given any extra valuation for anything other than the HODL according to their market cap and the Bitcoin price today.
Yeah, it is frustrating to watch other areas in the market, other proxies get those MNAV multiples. Bit Digital specifically, the one with the Ethereum balance on here. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, this was a decision that Sam and the team at Bit Digital decided to do, was sell their Bitcoin hodl, convert it into Ethereum. Remember, a few months ago they had 24,000 Ethereum. Today they've now got 120,000 Ethereum. That Ethereum price, as I've already explained, has probably gone up by more than 50% just in the last month. So you can see that what a decision that was. Ethereum's well outperformed Bitcoin in this last 2 or 3 months, and put Bit Digital in a quite strong position. That HODL Ethereum now represents 64% of the market capitalization. And bear in mind, you've got the subsidiary Wi-Fi, the spin-off from Bit Digital, to look at the HPC part of the business. That valuation today is just under 600 million. So you can see that the total there is getting close to 1.5 billion. Bit Digital at its highest valuation prior to the announcements of Wi-Fi was probably close to about 1 billion, but it had been languishing probably about half that amount for a number of months. And Sam and the team there were just wondering, they weren't getting any credibility for the fact that, they had significant assets, they had significant contracts that were delivering predictable revenues, predictable margins. And so it looks like the decisions he's made have all really come to fruition. And hopefully, if the news out from Standard Chartered with regards to Ethereum price is accurate, they're in for a good ride for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, no doubt. We talk about some of the parts analysis on the channel. It appears breaking this company apart, you're now getting more value for each one of those parts individually. So kudos to Sam Tabar on both the move into Ethereum and splitting up or breaking up that company to gain more shareholder value. Now, the next chart here, a great extension of what we've just been talking about, this frustration in the mining sector. We looked at this graph a few weeks ago. It was almost green across the board. Now you start looking at these various different durations, aside from today's column, which we discussed in the intro, starting to look a lot more red again.
Yeah, and these pullbacks there, the Bitcoin price hasn't really dropped significantly over the last few weeks. It's actually been on a nice rise, but the mining stocks over certainly this last 5 days, month, have certainly started to lose value, as can be quite clearly seen. If you look at the month change position there, Mara down 18%, CleanSpark down 21%, Cypher down 21%. Those are three miners that have probably got a lot of retail interest, a lot of institutional interest there, but just not really performing well. Go back to the year-to-date changes, so it's a good indicator for the last sort of 7 or 8 months. IREN obviously the standout one there at 81%, but then you got the next miner is Riot on 13%, and then you're into single digits from the start of the year. So even though we've seen the start of the year, the Bitcoin price rise significantly, we're not seeing anywhere near that for the mining stock. So maybe the market's realizing it's a really difficult business to be in Bitcoin mining, as we've seen from the recent updates in earnings.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. And we can talk next about Hashprice here. That's continued to increase alongside the price of Bitcoin up into the $59 range. But as you say, not reflecting in the share price of these miners. Now, we do estimate a difficulty reduction towards the end of the month. But as we've talked about prior, this can change a lot in terms of volatility as we approach that adjustment date. So anything on the Luxor hash rate index catching your attention right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to see a potential, adjustment downwards for miners. That gives them a bit more opportunity to produce more Bitcoin, and you want to when the hash price is 59, and believe you me, it's not been above 59 too often since the halving last year. It's gone above 60 a couple of times, but not for any long periods. It looks like since the start of August, we've seen that sort of like slow movement up from 56 up to sort of like the 59.60 mark, and hopefully can continue as we're seeing this really positive period for Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies out there. Network hash rate 909. Again, we've talked about this there. That seems to be pulled back a little bit since the last time. Look, this is a 7-day average, so this isn't like the live network hash rate. If we showed you the live network hash rate, it's a bit like a heartbeat monitor. It's it can be as high as 1.2 or sorry 1200 exahash. It can be as low as 600 exahash. So we look at the 7-day average, which basically averages out the gains and reductions. And 909's come down from the last time we showed this chart there. Let's see. You can see the average block time 10 minutes 36 seconds. It should be around 10 minutes. So as that's taking longer, the difficulty will be reduced to get it back to 10 minutes. But that won't happen until likely on about the 23rd of August. So we've still got, the best part of 10 days to go before that happens there. But I think it's hopeful for the miners when they see the hash price at 59. We'll speak to Ben tomorrow. They've got 17.7 exahash energized at the moment operating for them. Let's see what their thoughts are on hash price and where they see it going over the next few months. And what are they able to achieve at $59 at the moment?
Yeah, I remember specifically one of our interviews with Ben. He said traditionally, based on what he's seen in prior cycles, Hashprice does a 4x from the floor to the ceiling each cycle. So if we assume we saw Hashprice in the high 30s or maybe 40 is kind of the floor here, that would indicate a Hashprice up towards $160 based on what Ben has witnessed in prior cycles. So as they say, a little bit of frustration in the Bitcoin mining sector, but bull markets generally don't end in frustration. They end in optimism that comes crashing down. So we'll see if the miners can recover here as we continue to move through the cycle. Now, the last slide we wanted to bring up, this is kind of a nice way to pull everything together. We've talked about some of the treasury companies. We've talked about some of the new proxies in the space. We've talked about the miners. The HODL 15 top 100 here, this is another table we've seen evolve tremendously over the last 2 years. Nice way to kind of pull it all together here. Also got some visibility into Hive's HODL position, which we've been looking for over the last few months.
Yeah, they've stopped actually including the HODL on their monthly update, and you can sort of understand it. I mean, not too many months ago, their HODL was over 2,000 Bitcoin, 2,200. Today, according to HODL 15, and they'll probably have access to the wallet's address so they can probably get an accurate account of what's in there, 91 Bitcoin. Now, we do know that they use a lot of their Bitcoin to buy a load of machines, and basically they swap the Bitcoin for the machines. With the opportunity they can buy that Bitcoin back, and I think it's around about the 85, 86,000 dollar mark. So if you look at today's price, 121,000, that's an immediate gain of about 35,000 if they take that option up. Obviously, you've got to have the cash available to do that, and that's a significant amount. But it gives them an option to get that HODL back at the price that they converted at. So that was part of the deal there. If you look at the table itself, you've now got to have, remember we first started doing this was 70 companies. You had to have 3 Bitcoin to get onto a list of 70. Now we've got to 100, and we've seen this immense uptake in companies buying Bitcoin. You've got to have a minimum of 50 Bitcoin to get onto the table. That shows you how popular this type of strategy is now, and more and more companies every day announcing they're doing this. I've just had a quick look at there, and this obviously, he produces this probably weekly. There's 31 companies that have increased their HODL size in the last week, and only 2 companies have reduced it. Hive, we've talked about there, and Galaxy Digital as well. They've also talked about that now. Galaxy Digital are probably maybe using some of that Bitcoin to start refurbishing the Helios site, ready for their new partner to move in there, CoreWeave, when they go into the Helios site down in Texas and start using their HPC fleet down there. So that's in red. But the majority of the changes in the last week are all green there, and you can look at the likes of Strategy now heading towards 630,000 Bitcoin. Mara still holding that second slot there, 50,000, but I think they're going to be under pressure from 21, and possibly maybe some of the other companies in there that are going to start catching them up, that using this strategy. That strategy themselves have been using for the last 2 or 3 years in able to raise capital using various levers and buying Bitcoin with the opportunity there, and it's going to be an interesting period now. Let's see when the next week comes out and see what the company in 100th position has got in terms of HODL there. But you can see quite clearly there's only one company on 100. Then you've got to get to 61. So you need quite a significant amount of Bitcoin to get onto this table.
Yeah, you certainly do. And you look down that first column, it's nothing but green arrows up. So it'll be interesting to see where this all ends, Anthony. A lot of optimism, a lot of money flowing into the space right now. We'll see how this all plays out in due time. So with that being said, a lot of data in today's presentation. Let us know how you guys are feeling about the Bitcoin miners, specifically Core Scientific if you're holding shares, and your thoughts on the Bitdeer Seal Miner platform and strategy. If you're still watching at this point, hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here tomorrow with our interview. Bitfarms Ben Gagnon, Q2.